friends, Krista here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams. I'm really excited because I'm on the ball this month. It is January 14th. Editing Krista here. I just said how on the ball I was, and then I said January 14th. Clearly, I'm not that on the ball. It's July, Krista. July. And I'm here to talk about my mid-month wrap-up. Look at me go. I've already read 6 books this month, so I have quite a few to talk about already. And I'm a little bummed because none of them have been 5 stars. None of them have been awful, so that's okay. I've had a couple 4 stars, but I've had no 5-star reads. So that's a little bummer. I'm hoping the end of the month brings me something that I can give a 5 stars to. But I do have 6 books to get to talk about, and then I'll tell you what I'm currently reading, and let's just get going. The first book that I finished was a carryover from my June TBR, and that's Men We Reaped by Jesmyn Ward. And now that I think about it, I might have talked about this in my June wrap-up because I did finish it like July 2nd, I think. This is a nonfiction memoir by Jesmyn Ward. This talks about her growing up in the South, in Mississippi, and her hometown. And also, within a 4-year period, she lost 5 loved ones from her brother, cousin, and just friends that she knew. And so we learn about their life and their stories as well. It was a very timely book to read in light of all of the racial conversations that are going on in America, especially right now. I did give this just 4 stars, and I think it could have been a 5-star read if I just sat down and read it all at once. However, I did feel like it was a little bit choppy. So the structure of the book is that every other chapter alternates between her childhood and also these 5 men that she knew and their stories. But her childhood goes chronologically, and then she starts backwards with the 5 men until it kind of culminates at the end with the story of her brother, who was the first of these 5 men in her life who passed away within that 4-year period. It was emotional at times. It was very heartwarming. Her love for her family in the South, in the town that she grew up in on the coast of Mississippi, the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, is very clear in her language and in the way that she writes about situations and people. But it wasn't an easy read either. So I did give this 4 stars. I feel like I spread it out too much. If I had pushed it together a little better, I might have appreciated it a little bit more. But because it took me over a month to read it, it kept me feeling disjointed from what she was talking about. So that's on me, not on her. I did feel like the writing was beautiful, and it's a very timely and important read. And I know that there's lots more praise for this out there. So take a look at some other reviews if you're interested in this one, Men We Reaped. It was definitely worth it. I'm so glad that I read it and that I supported her as an author. It's actually signed. To Krista, with respect, from Jesmyn Ward. Yay. I don't really get excited about that, but when I get to hear the author speak in person, it's pretty cool. The next book that I finished is one of the ones that I read for my Goodreads group, Kitchens of the Great Midwest by J. Ryan Straddle. And I did hear about this from a podcast, and it was very highly praised, and lots of people have touted the praise of J. Ryan Straddle's newest book, which is The Lager Queen of Minnesota, which I have no interest in reading. I'm not a beer drinker or connoisseur by any means, so I just don't think that I'll care about it, but I don't know. I did enjoy this one. I think I enjoyed it more than the other people who've already read it in the group, and if you're still hoping to read it, maybe I can convince you to pick it up. But I'll let you know that most other people who've read this already, there was only a handful of us so far that have finished it. Most of them didn't really like it. This is reminiscent to me of Olive Kitteridge, and I forget who wrote Olive Kitteridge. The reason that it has those vibes for me is because we follow the life in a way of this woman, Eva Thorvald, who it comes from this Swedish family and is a renowned chef by the end, right? And we kind of learn about her life through different people's perspectives. So it starts, each chapter is almost like a little short story that, when it all comes together at the end, gives us a bigger picture of this woman and her life. It's not super easy to follow. It's not a typical structure of a book that I normally like. However, I did like this. I enjoyed the writing. I enjoyed the quirkiness of some of the characters. I enjoyed how it was all brought together at the end, by the end. I appreciated some of the difficulties that were in here about family and people making some choices and how those choices affect others. Quirky is just the word that I keep coming back to for this one. It's not exactly what I was expecting, and it wasn't like a huge wonderful surprise like Gentleman in Moscow was last month, but I did really enjoy it. It was an easy read. I think I read it in 2 or 3 days. Like it didn't take me very long to read. I liked it and ended up giving it 4 stars, but I know other people in the group didn't really care for it. So do with that what you will. I don't think that was very clear, but it is what it is. The next book that I finished was an audiobook, and it's one of the ones that I chose from Modern Mrs. Darcy's Summer Reading Guide, and I listened to Love Lettering by Kate Clayton. This was a super cute romance love letter to letters and the shapes and the shapes that they make. I forget the main character's name, but it's her story. She lives in New York City and comes to New York out of kind of a traumatic way, and ends up staying with her best friend. And it's really about female friendships just as much as it is about the romance that's in the story. I loved the female friendship side of this story. It's a love letter to words and letters and fonts and typeface. So this woman is a, I don't know what you call it. She, like a calligrapher, but more than that, she does the hand lettering on like invitations and wedding announcements and bulletins and all of those kinds of things. And she occasionally would use the typeface to put a hidden message in her work. And so the story kind of starts out one day where this man shows up in the shop. She, a year ago, had done the lettering on their wedding programs, and in the program wrote a hidden message and kind of hinted that that this marriage would be a mistake. So this would-be groom came into the shop a year later and said, "How did you know?" And he like figured it out. And so this kind of begins a relationship between the two of them, where New York is a big part of this story, and she kind of fell in love with New York and made it her own by walking around the city and just looking at all the signage and the different establishments around the city. And she wants to help him fall in love with New York, and so they kind of go on this adventure together of just walking around the city. And she has this job opportunity that's a big part of it. So I really found it to be a really cute story and unique. It's not something that I had read about before, but I only gave it 3 stars, and that's not a bad thing. 3 stars is usually a book that I enjoyed. I just found that there were a couple phrases that were overused. I found myself eye rolling a little bit more than I typically like to. His mouth like swooshed when he smiled, and just little things like that started to get under my nerves by the end of it. So I did give it 3 stars. Super cute, fun summertime read, but not anything that I'm going to need to own the book myself or share with other people. It was fun, it was cute, and it was unique, but it was a little bit much for me at times. So there you have it. Then I read a book that I did really enjoy. I gave this one 4 stars, Aisha at Last by Uzma Jalaluddin. This is a modern Muslim Pride and Prejudice retelling, and it was so interesting to me. I haven't read very many books that are set in a modern Muslim culture. I think A Place for Us by Fatima Farheen Mirza gave me a glimpse into that culture, but this one was very fun. I love Pride and Prejudice retellings, but this one was done really well, and I loved the Muslim aspect as well, like learning about the culture of I want to say church, it's not church, of their mosque, and like the young people at the mosque, and the family, like this extended family that lives all in this neighborhood, and how they all related to each other. And yeah, I love picking out the different parts that are related to Pride and Prejudice. It was a lot of fun, and I definitely enjoyed this. I read this for Jane Austen July and thought it was fantastic. Aisha at Last, 4 stars. Then I finally finished Return of the King by J.R.R. Tolkien. I'm so glad that I finished this. This is most definitely my least favorite of the 3. Fellowship of the Ring would be my favorite. I mean, The Hobbit is on its own. I love The Hobbit. Fellowship of the Ring I enjoyed. Two Towers was okay. This one, I didn't really like this one. I think I ended up giving it 3 stars because I feel bad giving a J.R.R. Tolkien book 2 stars. But I honestly don't think I could tell you what happened at the first half of this book. I was so bored. Too much battling going on, too many names and places that are, first of all, hard to pronounce, even in my head, like made up names. I did watch the movie shortly after finishing, and it helped to kind of put into perspective everything that was going on, even though the movie is quite different in a lot of ways. The second half got better as we returned to Sam and Frodo and their voyage into Mordor and attempt to get rid of the ring and Gollum and all of that. And then I felt like it was a little bit anticlimactic. The movie does a better job of like drawing that out and really making that a big scene. I feel like in the book it just happened so quick, and then we're like, the Eagles are picking them up and they're headed back to the Shire. I don't know, it felt like anticlimactic, the whole end of the ring situation. The second half definitely went by a lot faster than the first half. The first half, if I wasn't reading this for Lord of the Read-Along, I probably would have DNF'd it, except that now I can say I've read Lord of the Rings. Will I ever read them again? No. Will I ever read The Hobbit again? Absolutely. But I don't think I will ever pick these up again. And also, what's really annoying is my book like fell apart. This whole thing fell apart. So that's really sad. I'll probably keep them on my shelves just because it's Lord of the Rings, but I don't think I'll ever read them again. So I feel bad because like this got 3 stars and Love Lettering got 3 stars, but I enjoyed Love Lettering way more than I enjoyed Return of the King. But I just have a hard time giving this less than 3 stars. I don't know. It is what it is. I'm done with it. Yay. Sorry for all of you like huge Tolkien fans out there. I love The Hobbit. I love Sam and Frodo's friendship. I mean, Sam is the star of the show, and Aragorn because he's Aragorn. But I love Sam. And Gollum is a lot of fun. I mean, there's a lot of characters in there that I really appreciate. Legolas and Gimli and their friendship. I mean, there are definitely aspects of the book that I appreciate. So maybe 3 is an appropriate star rating. I don't know. The last book that I just finished yesterday is Recipe for Persuasion by Sonali Dev. I just purchased this recently because I loved the first one, Pride, Prejudice, and Other Flavors. But this one I also enjoyed. I read this with Rainy from Rainy Day Reads. I'm only giving this one 3 stars though, because where Pride and Prejudice and Other Flavors really hit the mark for me was in the vibe. It was not a direct retelling. Like Aisha at Last, I feel like was a much closer retelling than Pride, Prejudice, and Other Flavors, but I felt the same kind of feels and commentary on their culture. This involves some of the same characters from that first book, and we learn a little bit more about their story, and it does definitely have nods to Persuasion, which is my favorite Jane Austen. And please, somebody, write a Persuasion retelling that I love, because I still haven't read it. There's not that many out there, but of the 2 that I've read so far, both have been okay, but not fantastic. They're not blowing me away. I did like the romance in here. I got a little eye-rolly at times with just how it was slightly cheesy, which I don't always mind that. I don't mind a little bit of cheese in my stories, but there was too much communicating going on through body language and facial expression and not through words. And I really like in my books a lot of witty banter and like conversation. And there was a lot that was said without conversation between the main love interests, I guess, in here. I loved the food aspect of this, which is kind of similar to the first one. I love that she's bringing food into these stories. That was a lot of fun. This is also an Indian family living in America, and like this family is a little bit of royalty as well. So there's just a lot of privilege and wealth, and it's a lot of fun. It's definitely a lot of fun, and I didn't have a hard time reading it. I really did enjoy reading this. So I am giving this 3 stars, only because I think I gave the first one 4 stars, and I liked this one a little less than the first one, but it's still lovely and so much fun, just with a little bit of eye roll. There is a little bit of language in here that didn't feel necessary. I don't always mind swearing in books. I don't prefer it, but it doesn't bother me if it seems to fit, and it just didn't feel necessary in this one. And there is one like bedroom scene, but I appreciated that we didn't, I mean, we kind of came into the bedroom and then left and shut the door while they did their business. So it wasn't totally closed door, but it wasn't totally graphic either. I did appreciate that. And I do appreciate all of the nods to Persuasion. I feel like there was a whole storyline with the main character's Ashna with her parents that veered quite far from the Persuasion story. I feel like where it connected is how it made Ashna feel, the Anne Elliot character, how she responded to her parents and the burden that she took on because of her parents' decisions is very similar to Persuasion. However, it went way off on exploring that storyline, which I liked, but I had to come to a point at the beginning of this where it was just like, let me just appreciate this for what this is and not constantly be looking for all the connections to Persuasion. And once I was able to do that, I did appreciate this a little bit more. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't quite as enjoyable as the first one. I do hope she comes out with more. Like, it would be kind of cool if she does more in the series as well. The 2 books that I'm currently in the middle of, only two, can you believe it? I'm still working my way through Gone with the Wind, but I am now like 250 pages from the end. And honestly, my goal is to finish it this week. It's totally doable. I can totally finish it this week. I'm leaving for New York on Monday again, and I don't want to bring this with me. So I have to finish this before next Monday. And the only other book that I'm reading is A Heart So Fierce and Broken by Bridget Kemmerer. And I just started this like yesterday. I'm already a quarter of the way through. This will be a quick read. And after I finish this, I'm not picking up anything else until I finish Gone with the Wind. So these are the 2 that I'm reading right now. And that is my mid-month wrap-up. I cannot believe it's already halfway through the month of July. I would love to hear from you. What have you loved so far this month? What have you been reading? I do have quite a few books out from the library right now. I'm so excited about my Reading Rush TBR, which just went up yesterday. On the day that I think I'm going to post this on Thursday. My Reading Rush TBR went up yesterday. So I'm really excited about that and all those books that I'm bringing home to New York with me for next week's readathon. I still have this pile of ones I'd like to get to this month. So still a lot of reading that I'm excited for the rest of this month. I'm hoping for a 5-star or 2 or 3 or 4. I think it'd be awesome to get some 5-star reads in. But I'd love to chat with you about what you've been reading so far this month or about any of these. What did you think of them? If you've read them as well. Have I put any on your TBR? Let me know. Let's chat in the comments below. You guys know I love talking with you down there. And I'll be talking to you in another video very soon. Bye.